Hey there, you awesome bipeds, quadrupeds, and even the occasional dinosaurs. It is I, Little Wolf, and welcome to my den. Go ahead and come on in, but please wipe your paws before entering. Alright, so I'm looking out today, and it's kinda gray and dreary and kind of looking like Stephen King's The Mist is rolling into the little town we're at. So I figured it'd be a good day for kind of a scary story. And I tried to look around through some of the books that I have, and I'm gonna have to go ahead and read through a bunch of the stories and try and pick out a good one for me to read. So that might take a little while, especially with having to get used to some of the old English that a lot of the stories use. Because a lot of them were written about the time when they would have like the weird science magazines and all of those other old magazines that people would send their stories into, and they would print them out and do them in chapters, and it'd kind of be like one of those weekly printouts or something like that. I want to go into like some of the old history of some of those old magazines and maybe make a video about it. But until then, I decided to kind of cheat a bit and looked up old public domain horror stories, or even just public domain ones, and I did find one that will be fun for this. But since it's also kind of a dreary, depressing day, if anybody ever feels like they need to hurt themselves, or they know somebody who wants to hurt themselves, or anything like that, and they think nobody cares and there's nobody they can talk to, they can always hit me up, either in YouTube or in the Discords. Just kind of look up my channel or leave a thing in the comments and I'll get back to you. I know the King Crew would definitely talk to people, and I know there's at least maybe half a dozen people that I know that usually will say they're willing to talk to people, so you can always open up to us. Or if you don't feel like you can do that, and you feel like you need to talk to somebody kind of anonymously, you can always call the U.S. Suicide Hotline number, which is 1-800-273-8255. Again, that's 1-800-273-8255. Or you can text them if you're better at texting or you're more comfortable with it, at 741-741. Oh, sorry. I kind of have a weird little cold going on right now from my second shot in the arm, and I'm still waiting for my bodily 5G mutation to start to take place. But if you're in another country, which I know a lot of my friends are, you can always visit the website opencounseling.com/suicide-hotlines. And that will give you a list of all the other countries that are out there and whatever numbers or websites you need to look up to be able to talk to somebody. And if you really need to, please do. We care about you a lot, and I care about you a lot. And I like having people come into my den and just sit down and take a quick break. And like I said, the break I'm going to give you today is me reading a short story that I found. And it is noted as being public domain. And so I really hope that, it is. And I hope you guys enjoy. And like I said, this one is called The Petting Zoo by Peter de Niverville. And if I said that name wrong, I'm sorry. It's kind of what Google told me to say. So if it's wrong, blame Google. So go ahead and sit back and relax with whatever snacks you have. You know, you can have tea, coffee, or hot chocolate since we have the cauldron here. Make yourself some popcorn or whatever kind of comfort food you want to have. And turn out the lights and let's have some fun. The Petting Zoo by Peter de Niverville. At first, Johnson thought it was a joke. Speeding down the country road, the crude sign was only a blur. But it was that one word. Slowing down, he swung the Lexus onto the paved shoulder. In the rear view mirror, he could see it clearly. The sign was tacked to a stick that was stuck in the ground just beyond the paved shoulder. Shifting the powerful car in reverse, Johnson jammed the accelerator down. The tires squealed and loose gravel flew as he backed up the road. Screeching to a halt, Johnson stared at the faded handwriting. Ellsworth's famous spider petting zoo. 5 miles. Next right. Spiders fascinated Johnson. One summer when he was 8, a large golden black spider had taken up residence underneath the shingles by the back door. Every morning Johnson would gather up ants in a jar from a nest in the scrubby woods behind his house. One by one he would drop the wriggling insects into the web. With lightning speed, the spider would spring from her hiding place and race towards the victim, sinking her fangs into the ant. She would retreat, waiting for the poison to take effect. When the ant slowly stopped struggling, she would climb back down and delicately wrap her prey in a white shroud. This continued until one day his mother caught him. "What a cruel little boy you are!" she scolded between clenched teeth as she pummeled his backside. He could still feel the shame of being spanked. Years later, in a rare moment of remorse, Johnson wondered what was it like for the ant, trapped, helpless, waiting for the spider to return. Did it know fear or horror? Or was that something only humans experienced? The insect brain was too small, he told himself, or so he hoped. 5 miles, Johnson thought. This side trip might only add another half hour or so to his journey. He would still have time once he got to his motel to have a shower. The diner meeting with the buyer from the supermarket chain wasn't until 6 o'clock, and it was only 4 now. Coasting forward, Johnson scanned the road looking for the turnoff. About 100 yards ahead, he saw a lane that intersected with the highway. Flicking on his turn signal, he shot a quick glance at his watch. "If I don't find it in 15 minutes, he promised himself, "I'll turn back." Accelerating smoothly, he turned onto the well-paved secondary road with deep ditches on either side. Punching the buttons on the CD player, he stretched his arms, settling back into the soft leather seat. As the throbbing beat of Queen filled the Lexus, his mood lightened. An unexpected adventure on an otherwise boring day. Johnson hated his job. Endless meetings with bad food and balding buyers. Too many drinks and too many hangovers. He was packing on the pounds, too. "I have to get back to the gym," he reminded himself. The only redeeming feature of his job was that he was good at it. Top sales rep for the last 3 years. "I should have been an actor," he told himself. "Instead, I'm selling toilet paper and tampons to these turkeys." As the needle on the speedometer crept higher and higher, the neatly kept fields and freshly painted houses became a blur. Mile after mile slipped by. Johnson felt that he and the car had become one, soaring along like a hawk on the summer breeze. His mood soon soured. The condition of the road deteriorated. Asphalt gave way to chip seal, which gave way to gravel, and finally ended up as dirt. Johnson jumped on the brakes when a huge pothole emerged in the center of the road. Cursing the delay, he checked his watch again. It was almost 5. The long drive down the country road had dulled his sense of time. "I'd better turn around," he cautioned himself. As he studied the road ahead, looking for a safe place to make a U-turn, he saw it. An old farmhouse set back from the road. If it hadn't been for the pothole, he might have missed it completely. By the mailbox, a freshly painted sign read, "Ellsworth's famous spider petting zoo. Open year-round. All visitors welcome." This must be the place, he concluded. Carefully turning up the heavily rutted lane, Johnson wondered what he would find. Perhaps one of the locals playing a joke on tourists, he mused. Tall grass slapped at the bottom of the car, and rusted barbed wire hung on rotted posts that ran along the lane. In the untilled fields, scrubby bushes had sprung up like mushrooms. Johnson tried to imagine what the farm had looked like in better days, but it was impossible. When he reached the top of the hill, the farmhouse looked even more decrepit. Blistered paint hung from wooden shingles, and there was a disturbing sag in the middle of the roof. What once had been a side garden was now occupied by a tall thistle, and a mass of tangled timbers indicated the former site of the main barn. Except for the grass still being intact in the windows, the house looked abandoned. "Where is everybody?" Jason thought. In response to his question, an old woman dressed in a black skirt and woolen sweater stepped out of the side door. She was gnarled and withered like a lone apple tree that stood in the main yard. Johnson guessed she must have been at least 70, maybe even 80 years old. "What do you want?" she spat. Turning off the CD player and rolling down the car window, he replied, "Is this the petting zoo?" "That's what the sign says, don't it?" Ignoring her rudeness, Johnson continued, "Are you open?" "I'll get Jake. He's out back chopping wood." He watched as she shuffled down a dirt path and disappeared around the corner of the house. Charming, thought Johnson. Opening the car door, he stepped out. Despite the poverty, the farm had a certain rustic appeal, which reminded him of the house he grew up in the country. But there was something odd, something missing. Where are the flies? Thought Johnson. On most farms, the low buzz of black swarms was constant, but here there was none. Except for the moaning of the wind, it was quiet. Perhaps it was the lack of animals, he thought, or maybe it was the stiff breeze at the top of the hill that kept them at bay. Glancing at his watch, he frowned. It was after 5 o'clock. If he did not get back on the road soon, he would be late for his appointment. Either that, or skip his shower. After driving all day, Johnson did not want to skip the soothing ritual. Taking one last look around, he reached for the handle of the car door. Just then the old woman reappeared, and behind her an even more wizened-up old man, wearing faded blue overalls and a nicotine-stained undershirt. Stopping at the corner of the house, the old man spat a long jet of chewing tobacco onto the ground. Wiping his mouth with the back of his hand, he paused momentarily to study Johnson. Speaking to the woman, he said in a low tone, "Thought I heard a car come up." "Wants to see your spiders," she said before she turned away and went back into the farmhouse, letting the screen door slam behind her. "You want to see my spiders, young fella?" "Sure, if you're open. How much?" Looking over the Lexus, he scratched his ruddy face and said, $50. "50? That's ridiculous." Shrugging his shoulders, the old man said, "Take it or leave it. I got work to do." Then he spat another long jet of chewing tobacco and turned to go. "I can't leave now after coming all this way," thought Johnson. Taking another quick glance at his watch, he said irritably, all right, but this had better be good." The old man smirked and licked his lips as Johnson whipped out a crisp $50 bill from his wallet. Johnson did not like the old man's greedy look and hastily shoved his wallet back into his pants pocket. "Thanks," said the old man sarcastically, snatching the bill from Johnson's hand, looking over it carefully, and then folding it up neatly, stuck it in the pocket and said, "Follow me." The old man led Johnson down an overgrown path to a shed at the back of the farmhouse. Inside, the dim glow of fluorescent tubes highlighted the dozen plywood shelves that ran along the walls. In contrast to the rest of the farm, the shed was almost neat, almost antiseptic in appearance. Sitting on each shelf was a glass terrarium filled with twigs and rocks, and the closest to Johnson, a small garden spider was spinning a web in a corner. "That's an orb spider," the old man said. "I know," said Johnson, annoyed by the interruption. "You know spiders?" "A bit," Johnson replied. "I used to study them when I was a kid." "I bet you're the type that like to feed 'em too, huh? Catching bugs, dropping 'em in, see what happens. Fun, ain't it?" Suddenly Johnson was uncomfortable. How did he guess my secret, he wondered. Johnson felt a warm rush of blood to his neck and ears as he started to blush. "No need to be ashamed, young fella. All kids do it. It's natural." Trying to change the topic, Johnson asked, "You been at this long? Keeping spiders?" "Yeah, I've been at it a while. Most folks are scared of spiders. Not me. Me and spiders get along real good." Johnson turned back to watch a large black spider in another case, sucking up the half-digested slurry of its latest victim. Trying to be polite, Johnson asked, "Bet you don't get many visitors here, being far from the highway." "Don't need 'em," the old man said. "This is just a sideline." Pausing for effect, he added, "I breed 'em." Johnson looked puzzled. "For the college," explained the old man. "They use 'em for research." "Does it pay well?" "Good enough. And they don't know squat about spiders," said the old man, spitting on the floor. Johnson looked down and saw a streak of the sticky black tobacco had splashed onto his shoes. "I've been doing research of my own," said the man proudly. "Spiders are just like any other critter. Cows, horses, dogs, they're all the same. Breed the best with the best and you get the best. Or the old man's voice trailed off as he started to laugh. There was something about his tone that made Johnson uneasy. "You want to see my prize winner?" Johnson looked around. Oh, she ain't here. I keep her in the barn. She kinda makes these critters nervous. I can't say I blames 'em. Wanna see her?" The way the old man said it, the question sounded more like a challenge. Johnson hesitated. He wanted to say no, but he could not let the old man see that he was afraid. "Sure," answered Johnson. What could it be? He asked himself. A tarantula? With the old man in front, they went down a lesser used path to a small barn, a stand of trees that made it invisible from the farmhouse. A shiny new lock on a rusted hasp yielded to the old man's key. "I don't like kids messing with my stuff." The ancient wooden door swung open. Inside it was pitch black. Johnson hesitated. What was it that made him apprehensive? His mouth felt dry, and he tried to swallow. "Go on in," taunted the old man as he shoved Johnson through the door. Stumbling on the raised sill, Johnson fell to one knee, ripping his pants. "Damn it," he cursed. "There's a light switch ahead of you," the old man reassured him. "Just pull the string." The stench of moldy hay made Johnson gag. "Where is the spider?" he called out. "She's in the back. You can't miss her." "Where's the light?" "Right in front of you. Can't you see it?" mocked the old man. Johnson stretched his hands out. At first he could not feel anything. Then, slowly groping the air, he caught hold of it. Johnson's heart leapt in relief. But there was something strange. The line didn't feel like string. It was sticky, like a... Pulling the line, Johnson knew he had made a mistake. Something rustled in the rafters above him, and bits of straw floated down. Johnson bolted for the opening. "Enjoy yourself," crackled the old man as he slammed the door and locked it. "Let me out," shouted Johnson, pounding at the door. "Let me out, you old buzzard!" But it was no use. The dried-out wood door was like iron. Pausing to catch his breath, his fists throbbing, Johnson looked around. Slowly his eyes grew accustomed to the dark. What appeared to be a black chasm was in fact the side entrance to the barn. There must be another way out, he thought. But where? In the gloom he could see beyond the entryway was a large open space, and beyond that a boarded-up window through which thin shafts of sunlight streamed. Great! All I have to do is cross the barn, pull off one or two of those boards, and climb out, thought Johnson. Then I'll show that old man. $50. He'll wish I had never stopped. Then he heard another rustle overhead, and more straw floated down. Who is it? Who's there? He called out. I'll bet it's that old man, thought Johnson. He thinks he's going to scare me. Sure, you just keep that up, old man, Johnson called out. Let's see how much you're laughing when I bash your face in. But first I've got to get to that window. Be careful, he cautioned himself. This barn must be full of junk. Don't want to fall down and get hurt. Despite the heat in the barn, he shivered. Licking the sweat off his upper lip, Johnson slowly picked his way across the wooden planked barn floor, being careful not to trip. Shadows of old machinery and tools loomed around him. A leather harness that hung from the wall looked like a hangsman's noose. There was a particular smell, too. It reminded him of a package of chicken he once left in the trunk of his car on a hot summer day. It was the sickly, sweet scent of rotting meat. "Oh, gross," muttered Johnson. "There's a dead animal in here." In less than a minute he had crossed the barn, and now was standing in front of the boarded-up window. Blocking his exit were 3 boards nailed haphazardly into the frame. Either the old man was too weak or too lazy to drive them all the way in, concluded Johnson. "I can probably pull them off with my bare hands," he smiled triumphantly. The first board was half rotted and fell apart in his hands. Light streamed in as it came away from the frame. Then he shifted his attention to his second one, the board in the middle. If he could get this one off, he could easily climb out. But this board wasn't so easy. It was like the old door of the barn, dried out and as tough as steel. Gripping the board with both hands, he began to pull. The nails squealed in protest, and the board started to move. "Only a bit further," grunted Johnson. The thought of throttling the old man excited him. Just a bit further, another half-inch. He could almost feel his fingers closing around the old man's scrawny neck, the eyes bulging, the tongue sticking out. Another half-inch. Then it stopped. Desperately, Johnson yanked at the door, but it was no use. It would not yield. "I need more leverage," he said to himself. Balancing on one foot, he braced his other against the window frame and started to pull again. The muscles in his forearms and back bulged as they strained against the board. Sweat rolled down his forehead and into his eyes. "Come on," he pleaded with the wood. "Come on." In his frustration, Johnson did not hear the soft tap, tap, tap on the floor behind him. Tap, 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 like a blind man with his cane. Tap, tap, tap. Then it was too late. It struck. The force of the attack rammed his face first into the wall, knocking the wind out of him. Warm blood trickled from his nose and ran down his cheek. What was that? Turning around slowly, he could see in the light from the window his attacker. It was crouched inside an empty stall along the opposite wall, the legs tensed, ready to spring. It was a spider. No doubt one of the old man's experiments, but this was no ordinary spider. It was huge, about the size of a pit bull, with its legs extended out 3 or 4 feet on either side. Its eyes stared coldly at him. Johnson did a quick tally of his injury. Except for his bloody nose, he was unharmed. Perhaps the large size of the creature made it difficult for it to mount an attack, he conjured. Perhaps he did not even recognize him as prey. Spiders normally eat moths and insects, he reminded himself, not human beings. When I was a kid, I liked to throw twigs into the web and see the spider's reaction. Inevitably, after pouncing on the object, the spider would pluck it out of the web, turn it over, and drop it on the ground. Johnson hoped the spider would show the same lack of interest. From its vantage point at the other end of the barn, the creature seemed puzzled, unsure of itself. Spiders are cautious, he told himself. It's waiting for me to make the next move. Although every fiber in his body screamed to run, his brain told him to stay still. The spider was too big and too fast to outrun. I need a weapon, he told himself. Quickly looking around, he saw the rotten board from the window lying at his feet. It was about 2 feet long with a jagged point at one end. "It'll have to do." Slowly he bent down to pick it up. The spider crouched low, like a sprinter ready to strike again. Johnson froze, his fingers only inches from the board. "Easy, girl," he whispered softly. "Easy." The spider relaxed, but not completely. Deliberately, it began to move forward. Tap, tap, tap. Johnson was amazed by the creature's grace, like a ballerina tiptoeing in from the darkened wings of a theater. It was a marvel of beauty to behold, and the design. The body, covered by fine gray hair, had the look of velvet, while the 8 legs that extended from the thorax provided speed and balance. As it approached Johnson, the spider carefully extended one foreleg towards him. Johnson quickly knocked it away with his hand. The creature stopped and cocked its plate-sized head to one side. The 8 eyes looked like black fists. Then the leg came forward again. At the tip, Johnson could see a spike-like claw for catch and prey. It touched his left shoulder. Through his jacket, he could feel the sharp point digging into his skin. Johnson winced and stepped backwards into the wall, but there was no place to go. Slowly, the other forearm came forward. Johnson recoiled, trying to ward off the attack with his free arm, but the creature was too strong. It brushed his arm aside as if it were a piece of lint and planted the second claw into his other shoulder. Johnson cried out, "Help! Help!" Then the spider reared up on its hind legs, forcing Johnson to his knees. In a brief moment, he and the creature looked into each other's eyes. It was almost like love. Then he saw the 6-inch fangs that extended from its head. Drops of venom gleamed in the half-light. He watched in fascination as the cruel daggers arched high over him. Then he screamed as they plunged deeply into his chest. Instantly, white-hot pain ripped through his body. Then, it was gone. The spider had retreated back into the stall. Johnson knew that he only had a minute or two before the poison paralyzed him. "This is it," he said to himself. "My only chance." Ignoring his wounds, Johnson turned back to the window. Grabbing at the board, he yanked and pulled to no avail. Already the venom was having its effect. But it was no use. He was beaten. Great sobs shook his body as he slumped to the floor. "This can't be happening to me," he protested. "It's ridiculous." Looking back at the spider, he could see that it still had not moved. "What is she waiting for?" he wondered. "Why doesn't she finish me off?" He soon had his answer. Shimmering like a great overcoat, there was something on the spider's back. It moved and undulated like a small wave flowing back and forth. Then a piece of the wave pulled away and dropped to the floor. It was another spider, only a lot smaller, about the size of a rat. Johnson recalled that some spiders carry their young on their backs. Horrified, he realized that he had stumbled into their nursery, and it was feeding time. Another one dropped to the floor, and then another. Soon there was a long line of spiders slowly crawling toward them. Poor Johnson. It's just kind of one of those things where, a young kid messes with insects or whatever, and he gets his kind of comeuppance in the end. And with that, our story time for now has come to an end. And I hope you enjoyed the story as much as I did. I love scary stories and anything like that, and especially short stories that are quick. And you can get through them really fast and then move on to another one. And usually when you can find them in an anthology set, it's even better, because you'll always have those few that aren't that great or aren't that good, but then you move on to the next one, and it's awesome. So, go ahead and hit me up with some of the short, scary stories that you guys like, or something that you might want to hear me read out. I know that Mute Donkey at one point said that I should read some Poe or something like that, and that's definitely in the works. I have a bunch of old collections of books that I found, and they collect a lot of stories from the old magazine days and all of the authors like that. And I have a whole bunch of them that range from sci-fi stories to fantasy stories to zombie stories, werewolf stories, and everything else in between. So, I'm definitely going to be reading up on some of those here soon and trying to pick out which ones I should read. And again, thank you for stopping by and spending time with me here in my den. I love you guys so much, and I hope you enjoyed this as much as I enjoyed making it for you. So, we live on one planet, guys. If we can't be nice, let's at least be civil. And I love you bipeds, quadrupeds, and even occasional dinosaurs so much. And until our next creepy tale, be safe and be civil. And I hope you hit that like button and comment with your favorite stories. And if you haven't yet, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I have different things that come out usually on a weekly basis. I have my old cartoons revisited. Here in about a month or so, we're gonna have the Thursday premieres coming back in, and I'll be doing old movie reviews. So, just hit that notification button and set it to all, and you'll know when a new video of mine pops up, and you know you're gonna at least have a 15-minute break from your day. And I hope you have fun, because I definitely enjoy doing this. And like I keep saying, I love you guys so much. So until then, bye-bye, you awesome bipeds, quadrupeds, and even the occasional dinosaurs. Wolf, out.